Hi, Liam Ward here at LearnTheHarmonica.com. What should a harmonica player do on the 5 chord of a 12-bar blues? It's a common place for us to slip up, and that's understandable because it really tests the limits of the harmonica. It's not so easy to play really cool sounding licks over that chord. So today we're going to be looking at some approaches to doing that. Before I go on, by the way, thank you to everyone who shared my post about losing my watch on Facebook. If you connected with me on Facebook, it really helped sharing that because I found it. I got it back. They gave it me back. Real sentimental value. So thank you for all your help. Okay, so a 5 chord. Well, what is that? Well, if you're familiar with a 12-bar blues, when we get to bar 9, there's a 5 chord. So if that's a G 12-bar blues, then that would be a D chord. Now it gets a bit scary at that point, and what most harmonica players do is they just linger over the 4 draw. So they go that kind of thing. They always go to that 4 draw, or maybe a 4 and a 5 draw. Which is fine, but the thing is, if you're doing it all the time, it's going to be repetitive. It's like anything, if you're doing it all the time, people get bored of it. So if you're usually playing that 4 draw, or the second most common thing to do is to play the 6 draw, if that's always what you do on a 5 chord, I want to give you some tips for really helping expand your playing there. And if nothing else, what I would recommend to you is that you learn the chord tones, okay? You learn to arpeggiate a chord. Now, all that means is we need to know 4 notes. That's it, 4 notes of a chord. Because the guitar, the bass, maybe the keyboard are likely to be playing those notes for this chord. Now, I'm not going to get into too much theory. I'm just going to tell you what those notes are. And you just trust me, they're the notes and they're going to fit. This is all assuming, by the way, you're playing in 2nd position, which in our case on a C harmonica is in the key of G. So if you've got a C harmonica, we're playing in G. When it gets to the 5 chord, that's a D chord. Or more specifically, likely it's a D7 chord. Now what are the notes we want for that? Well, for us, it would be D, F sharp, or G flat, means the same thing, A and C. What is that on the harmonica? Well, they're a bit tricky to find, and that's why we struggle on the harmonica to play over this chord, because it's tricky to find those notes. So I'm going to give you those notes, and you're going to use them, and we're going to talk about some really cool riffs to use them for. I'm going to grab my sugarcane harmonica, by the way. How cool's that? Because there's an overblow involved at a point here, and I don't think my Special 20 is particularly set up well for it, whereas Kane's will be. So, by the way, if you're not an overblow player, don't worry, you don't need it. The first 4 notes we're going to look at are down the bottom end of the harmonica. We're going to look at the bottom notes, the middle notes, and the top notes. But first off, we've got a 1 draw, and then a 2 draw single bend. That's a half step bend, semitone bend. 3 draw full step bend, and then 4 blow. So, okay. Now they're tricky, those bends especially. That first bend on 2, it can be very tempting to go down to that full bend there, okay? So you want to avoid that. It's worth getting a tuner. There's also a program called Bendometer or Bendometer, which would help getting that in tune. F sharp you're looking for, or G flat. And then of course the 3 draw second bend, we're looking for the A note. And it's being able to find that second bend, get down to the A. If your bending technique isn't there, this might be one of the reasons you're struggling on the 5 chord, because if you're not able to get these notes, it limits you to finding whatever notes you can get. But if you can get this set of notes, you can start building riffs, licks, phrases out of them. So you might play, I've just reversed them, or or I'm just making different combinations of those notes. They don't sound like much as I'm playing them now, but put those in over a 5 chord and it starts to open up what's available. Most players will actually, even if they're pretty good on a 5 chord, will stick to those bottom 4 notes. 1 draw, 2 draw first bend, 3 draw second bend, 4 blow. They'll just stick to those, and maybe the 4 draw. But they won't necessarily go up to the top end. But of course it's possible, it's just finding the notes. So where are those notes further up on the harmonica? Well, we've got 4 draw, and then we've got 5 overblow, and then 6 draw and 7 blow. Now the overblow does make it tricky to play things in the middle octave, and I don't use a lot of overblows, so I don't actually play that note very often. But it's there, and if you're able, use it. Use it on that 5 chord. Do some combinations of notes that you'd used at the bottom, move them into the middle of the harmonica. And of course, we can also find the notes at the top of the harmonica. There's no overblows or overdraws, but there is a blow bend. We've got 8 draw, 9 blow bend, 10 draw, 10 blow. And those notes will fit as well. So we have got, it is possible to find these notes the whole length of the harmonica. You've got 12 notes, 3 sets of 4 notes that will really fit really strongly with this chord. They're not the only notes you can use by any means, but they are really strong because they lock into what the other instruments are doing, and that's really crucial for making you sound suitable for the music. It's more easy on the 1 chord, on the 4 chord, because those notes aren't bends, they're not overblows, or they're not as often bends or overblows. So it's easier to find sets of notes that work. But even if you just use those bottom 4 holes, the 4 draw included, then you can get quite a lot of cool stuff out of it. But if you do want to expand right up to the top end, you'll make your playing really, really stand out. At the very least, I hope you get beyond just playing a 4 draw or playing a 6 draw, because it is able to do things a lot more interesting, this instrument that we play. So I'm going to stick on now a backing track which loops 5 chord to 4 chord to 1 chord, just so I can give you an example of some of the phrases I might play using some of these. I'll just use those bottom 4 holes for you, and I'll leave it to your imagination for the higher ones if you're able. Okay. So it's just that first bar we're interested in. I'm just playing with those bottom notes. Might just even hold one of them. That was just the second bend on 3. Okay, so that's just a little idea of some improvised, by the way, I've not prepared them, combinations of those lower notes. They weren't particularly flashy or really fancy in any way, but just a way of showing you that the 4 draw isn't the only thing that you can do on that 5 chord. I hope that today's lesson has helped open your eyes a little bit to some of the possibilities on the 5 chord, and I hope that you use some of these to expand your playing and make you stand out that little bit from some other harmonica players. I'm going to be back next week with another lesson. I'm not sure what I'm going to be teaching yet, But I take requests, so please leave comments beneath the video. You can email contact@LearnTheHarmonica.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. We've got a great community of players and learners on there, so do come and say hello. I'll try and do as many of your requests as possible, and I will see you again soon. Until then, enjoy your playing. Cheers.